helping you lead a healthier life. This is CURES.
Hi everyone, welcome to the CURES show, where we explore the cutting edge of wellness. And I'm excited to be here with Dr. Jennifer Stagg, who is the founder of the Whole Health Wellness Center, a specialist in integrative medicine. And as we head towards summer and we think about leaning out, especially if you're post 35, yes, I said 35, I know that sounds super young. Are there ways that are scientifically backed to hack our metabolism? And in fact, there are.
Yes, of course there are. There are a lot of ways.
Because all over the internet, this is why I really love on this show, we want to bring in leading thought leaders who actually, I mean, you are a medically trained doctor in functional medicine. You specialize in DNA testing, in all kinds of metabolic disorders, which apparently most of us have post 50 in this country.
Yeah, it's so common. And I would say that's one of the things when you're thinking about like hacking your metabolism, is to really get a personalized view of what's going on and have testing done through someone who understands other tests that you can do aside from just like a check of your thyroid.
Yeah. Well, and let's just talk about nothing against your regular MD, because I certainly have one. I love Dr. Papandri in West Hartford. But, you know, I have done more advanced testing through your office, through other stories I've done, and it's not something that's traditionally offered. So let's just start with that. Like, what kind of testing do we really need to have done to see where there might be problems with our metabolism that aren't necessarily full-fledged diabetes?
Right, exactly. So on your general screening that you would have done with an annual, for example, you would check a glucose level. So that's where you're checking for diabetes or pre-diabetes, and you would probably get a thyroid test. So that's about it in terms of checks of metabolism. So going a step further would be to look at insulin, for example, and you can actually order an insulin resistance score through Quest, and all of this can be done through just like your regular lab, right? It doesn't have to be a specialty.
Could you order it without a doctor?
Yeah, I mean, and you can self-order now.
Yeah, so sometimes Quest lets you. So like insulin resistance, which was the first time I ever got that test.
Yeah.
And you said, ding, ding, it's a little higher than I want it to be, which meant in practical terms, I wasn't imagining the fact that I would eat carbs and instantly feel like I was putting weight on or getting bloated. Like I was it means you're a little carb resistant.
Right, exactly. So we would say like your cells are not handling the blood sugar as they should because the insulin is not really working well enough, like binding the cells properly. So commonly you think of it sort of as like carb intolerant, right? You just can't like eat carbs and do okay. So you just like really are sensitive to anything that you eat.
And it could be good carbs, like, like whole wheat and oatmeal and all these healthy carbs.
Yeah.
So some of us might not be able to have those in very large quantities, or maybe not much at all. Can you fix this?
Yeah, so there are some things that you can do, which is why, you know, we're talking here today. It's not like nothing we can do about this. There are things that you can do, and certainly like the first thing we think about is diet, right? So manipulating the amounts of carbohydrate, protein, fiber, like really cutting out the sugar and starch for the most part, relying more so on getting your carbs from like vegetables that aren't starchy, I would say.
Fruits and veggies, because we don't think of those as carbs, but they're complex carbohydrates.
Yeah, so they have complex carbs.
So that's your first point. In case you were looking for like a major, how do I get around this? This part is sort of what we understand.
Right.
Start eating less.
Yeah. Kind of boring and not really the most exciting.
But it really does matter, even though the kind of calories we intake, it's not just calories in, calories out.
Yeah.
I know you like to talk about the information in the food that we get, but we really have to eat less.
Yes.
Post 35 for women.
Yes, especially. So we just don't need as many calories. As we get older, the amount that we need to keep our metabolism going is a lot lower. So easy things to do would be to just start tracking your carbs, right? You can get an app like MyFitnessPal, it's free, and start just like logging what you eat over a couple of days. And most times when I have patients do that, they're really surprised at like where our calories are coming from.
Because you don't realize that maybe if you're having, let's say you had some oatmeal for breakfast. That sounds like a healthy choice. You got a turkey sandwich for lunch. That sounds like a healthy choice. You have a little pasta with some turkey meatballs for dinner, and you think that's all healthy, but you just had way too many carbs probably for an adult woman.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll see that when you log it. So that is kind of like the first step, I would say. And then also just making sure you're getting enough protein, because that's another thing, especially for women, that we often do a poor job with, is getting enough grams of protein daily.
So I have found when I really focus on getting more protein, it's hard to, that takes up a lot of your calories, you're full.
Yep.
So that would be the first step. You want people, if you get that free app, you don't even pay attention to the macros that come with it, but you just want people to get about a gram of protein for their ideal body weight. So if you want to weigh 130 pounds, you want 130 grams of protein?
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot.
It does sound like a lot, but it's how much we really need. I would say a minimum of 100, and a lot of people have trouble getting to 100, but really like a gram per pound of ideal body weight is kind of where you want to be. And then for people who are really trying to put on a lot of muscle mass, like that goes up, it's more like 1.5 grams.
Yeah, so for like your son who's in college, or my son who's trying to be doing football, and I said, I'll just give you a little free advice. I said, can Julian, who's 14, take creatine? You said, actually, yes, it's very safe, but he has to just drink a lot of water.
Right.
And so some of these things that you're seeing online, I always get nervous just people just go out and buying stuff because it may not be the right thing for us.
Right, exactly. And sometimes like products you find online don't contain what they say in the label, all that sort of stuff we have concerns about.
So we're going to talk about something that you're seeing online in a second, and that is the Prolon cleanse or detox or fasting mimicking diet, all different ways. I mean, I think this is certainly showing up in my feed a lot. If you're wondering if it's a scam or how does this really work, in fact, this is something you do yourself and many functional doctors recommend as a metabolism reset.
Yeah, for sure. So it is definitely like based on excellent science. The research behind it goes back like 20 plus years, and the original goal with it is a longevity program, so to actually reverse your biological age. And when you do 3 rounds of this over the course of 3 months, where you're doing, you know, it's a 5-day program, and you're doing 1 each month consecutively, it has been shown to reverse biological age 2.5 years, which is pretty amazing, right, to actually have that effect.
Yeah.
But it's also sort of cleaning up older cells in your body that are called senescent cells. So we're getting rid of those through a natural process that gets stimulated from this. And as a result, it helps reset your metabolism. So that's why we kind of think about it as a reset. So it can help with like insulin sensitivity, for example.
So once we do this, we might actually become more insulin sensitive, and we could maybe eat some more carbs?
Yeah, but you still want to be careful with it, right? You still want to be targeting the protein and the right ratios. But yeah, it doesn't let you go like full on in.
Okay, yeah. So for all of us who are thinking like, just do Prolon and then you can go to eat like your teenage daughter, you can't, right?
No, that's never happening.
Okay, so I've done Prolon after I learned about all the science, and I've actually interviewed the Prolon company, their head over there, not Victor Longo, the doctor who created it, who's actually a genius in his field in longevity, but they paired us with one of their head folks who helps women and men get through this, because it's a little challenging, but there's a Facebook group, and you just finished doing this.
I did. I just did this last week, and it's not my first time with it.
So you do it regularly for
and
the autophagy, which is, autophagy is a fancy word with, we get kind of all new cells.
Yeah, exactly. We're getting rid of those old cells. So we're kind of like doing a little like spring cleaning. Okay,
so this is a great time to spring clean our bodies if we want. I did notice I lost weight. I think that unless you stick with it, I'm not wrong, you kind of gain weight back.
Right.
That's
so
not why you're doing it, right?
So you'll definitely lose. Most patients lose on it, and people lose on it. Like I'll often lose 5 pounds, but I'll probably gain back 2, because some of it is, you know, metabolic water and different changes like that. But if you stay healthy in between, you'll definitely get down a deficit, like as you go through each round consecutively.
Yeah.
I just had a patient actually who just went and did this, and she lost 10 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
And then lost another 5 that next week, and she's sort of maintained that now. She's down 15 pounds.
Wow.
And she just followed it just as the instructions said, felt really great on it. And she had been restarted it because her main complaint was that she had put on 15 pounds that she couldn't lose, and she was trying all sorts of things. And then we said, okay, let's do Prolon.
Okay, so Prolon, you get this, and the nice thing about it, if you're busy, you walk out, and there's one little box, right? There's 5 days in here. You do it for 5 days. And these are like little soups. they're kind of Mediterranean style. It's a lentil curry, and you just add hot water. So what I liked when I did this once, I'm not saying it wasn't challenging, but you come to work with one little box, and you don't have to think about food anymore. You just need water.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And you take electrolytes and things, and that's something that, even if you're not going to do Prolon, how important is hydration and electrolytes for your metabolism?
Yeah, it's a really big deal. A lot of people are not drinking enough like basic fluids and getting their water intake in, and then getting cellular hydration. So that's why we think also about electrolyte balance too, and adding electrolytes.
And is it really important to be hydrated and drink enough water in order to lose weight?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Like that's something that we see a lot of the time. It controls even your metabolism in terms of hormones and cravings. So kind of the wires, I think about it as the wires almost get crossed when people are thirsty. They think they're hungry, but like cellular dehydration makes you think you're hungry and you'll eat more.
Okay, and it also can affect our cognition, which, you know, if you're feeling a little brain fog or tired or don't have your stamina that you used to have mentally, water matters. So this is a fasting mimicking diet, because the next hack you have is intermittent fasting, which maybe you're just going to do that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But this, essentially, the studies show that you're eating this food, but it's been scientifically designed that your body doesn't know you're eating, so you stay in a fasted state, and that's how you clean up?
Yeah, exactly. So fasting in general does this, but it's really hard to just drink water and not eat any food. And it's pretty harsh on the body, right? Yeah, for 5 days. And even doing this is like the first day you feel pretty good. The second day is more challenging. But by the third and fourth, you're starting to feel those effects of that cellular cleanup where your energy starts improving, you have like more mental clarity. So you do get that. And of course, yeah, you can feel hungry, but I always remind myself, like, there's way worse things you can feel than hungry. Right? Like,
right.
And it's not like all day long that you feel like starving. It's just like you get these little bouts of like, I'm hungry, I would like to eat.
What does it mean? Like, okay, so let's talk about intermittent fasting first of all. So if you're not ready to do a Prolon yet, you would suggest that we do 14 hours of fasting.
Yeah.
And we could start maybe with fewer than that, but I often find that it's hard in the morning. You say, actually with women, you don't recommend that we skip breakfast.
Yeah, for sure. More of the science coming out around that is that you should be eating, like breaking your overnight fast before 9 a.m. and that kind of ties into some insulin release even, so it does have to do with insulin sensitivity. So you really want to break that fast in the morning. So depending on what your day routine looks like, if you start eating at 8, for example, then you would stop eating at 6, and then you've got your 14 hours overnight. So that doesn't sound like terrible, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Of course, what we eat matters, but having it for 10 hours, or even if you're just starting 12 hours, like sun up to sundown. I've heard 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. if you're really struggling, and then you can start adding on, right?
Exactly. So it's a good way to start getting more adapted to getting into this metabolic and digestive rest. And you just really need that for everything to sort of recover, right? Like if you're eating all day long from the time you wake up until the moment you go to sleep, it taxes your metabolism.
So you want to be in that digest and rest, right? There's digest and rest. So you want to be in that rested state.
Yep.
So of course sleep matters. But before we move on, I can't skip the intermittent fasting without going over the big news that made huge news all across America. That the American Heart Association talked about a study that was done in China, and they showed like a 90% increase in heart problems for people who fasted. I know a lot of doctors have come out and said, not so fast. We have to understand the full package here.
Right. I think like from what I read the study, and I read some experts' views on what was going on in the study. And from my perspective, what I gained is that it probably wasn't designed that well. And there were not enough, like a lot of the subjects who were in there already had elevated risk.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily an accurate pool to make this statement that it's going to cause increased like cardiovascular risk.
In fact, you do sometimes recommend intermittent fasting for clinical results. Like what type of results do you see in your practice when people start implementing the intermittent fasting?
Yeah, so and I would say one of the main things that I see is that like people do a better job with weight management So reducing that visceral fat in the midsection is huge for cardiovascular risk reduction. So if you're able to lose some of that belly fat, that makes a big difference. But we also will often see cholesterol numbers improve. And that's similar to Prolon. Prolon is actually shown to reduce cholesterol, reduce blood glucose pretty significantly.
Okay, so if we do something like this, the Prolon, just to remember, it is about 1 week a month for 3 months to get that full 2.5 years younger on your biological age.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so let's go back to the protein. If we're trying to get, this is where I think women struggle, men too. I mean, I guess men would even need more protein if they're trying to get per pound of muscle, per pound of body weight.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if you have a husband who's 200 pounds or something, or 180, that's a lot of protein.
Right, it is a lot of protein.
Okay,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And that seems different than what we hear with, say, the Mediterranean diet, which is always thought to be so healthy, and that's a lot of legumes and fish, and I'm not sure, maybe you do get...
right, so you still want to balance it out, but if you're balancing out your calories with non-starchy vegetables, they aren't very calorie dense.
Okay.
So like yes, you're getting maybe like 35% of your calories, 35 to 40 even from protein, but the rest of that is going to be fat and carbohydrate. So having like a lower level of carbohydrate is going to allow you to eat more protein, but a lot of those carbs, when you eat starches, they add up like tremendously compared to like if you had 2 cups of like pasta versus 2 cups of broccoli, you got a huge difference in calories there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing, if you're looking at the labels and thinking, but I'm doing this, it says based on a 2,000 calorie diet. I mean, you laugh because I guess women like us should nowhere be near eating 2,000 calories a day.
Right, absolutely.
Unless we want to gain a lot of weight.
Yeah, I mean, depending on your frame and size,
Right,
right?
right.
But, like,
we're both
small.
petite. I'm only 5'2". I don't know,
Me
maybe
too.
you're...
I'm 5'2" also.
Okay, so when we sit down and let's say I'm having dinner with my husband, we have to remember like we shouldn't be eating the same amount of food.
Exactly. Yeah, and certainly kids, like teenagers who are growing, they need
Oh my
more
gosh,
calories.
my son eats every 2 hours and
Right.
nothing happens.
Yeah,
He wants food like I think he eats 5,000 calories a day.
Yeah, and they could, especially if they're athletic and they're really active. They're going to burn a lot of calories, and then they're growing. They need a lot.
So what do you say to the moms out there who are so, I mean, because you're a mom of 3, and that's the thing is, you know, I know part of what you're doing is you're managing today's busy lives. There's all these things we can do, but the question is, can we do them?
Right.
So, you know, a lot of us are struggling to meal prep or cook, or how do we do something so that we can do this, be healthy, hack our metabolism, but keep it simple?
Yeah, so I would say like the number one thing I would say is to plan ahead. So if you don't have a plan for the week, you're just going to fail ultimately, right? And it can take like 20 to 30 minutes once a week. And once you get in the rhythm of doing it regularly, you'll probably not need as much time, but making sure you have enough protein on hand, like making sure you're actually putting together a grocery list that has like lean protein sources on it so it's available for you at home.
I think that's the hardest part is getting time to cook the protein. If you're like quick, you're running home, you need to get someone in the car and get out, and that's when you end up starving and had to drive through and making a bad choice or something.
But that could be like rotisserie chicken, right? Like, so if you know you have a really busy day, maybe you're buying like chicken that's already cooked.
Okay.
Or like even like
turkey meatballs.
Kevin's Meals, or pre-made
that's a good
meatballs.
brand.
Yeah.
So you like the Kevin's, Kevans, okay.
Yeah, like that's just like lightly cooked chicken and easy.
And then easy if you want to have a salad, of course, that takes no time to put together, but throwing in things that cook really quick, like handfuls of spinach that wilt in a minute.
Right. Steaming some broccoli, green beans, like all those things, you can buy it like already in the bag, cut up, cleaned, ready to go, and you're just putting it in a pot for like 5 minutes.
What's your ideal plate look like? Yours personally, or for a woman who wants to hack her metabolism, maybe lose a little weight, but be healthy? What would a plate look like?
Yeah, so it would be like a mix of green vegetables and lean protein, like chicken, fish. You can buy fish pre-cooked also. You know, like it's easy. Even like
there isn't a roll or a rice or even maybe too many sweet potatoes on that plate.
Yeah, well, maybe like a half. You could do a half a sweet potato. It would depend on if you are like carb tolerant or not, right?
So for someone like me where I was a little insulin resistant, you said you've seen worse, but like should I not put the sweet potato on my plate?
Probably not with dinner. So I would say like you can have a little bit of starch, but I would have that earlier in the day. So I would have that with lunch probably, like plant your starch in there and then keep your dinner protein and non-starchy veg.
What do you eat for breakfast?
For breakfast, it varies. Like sometimes I actually use these fasting bars. You can buy them separately, and they're great because they're gonna like extend your fast a little bit, but you're actually getting calories, so it's kind of a different concept.
These are fasting mimicking bars. Prolon, you can buy them online. They kind of taste nutty and honey.
Yeah.
They're good.
No, they are. Like this food's actually tasty and doesn't have any like bad chemicals in it at all. Like
it's
no
all
chemicals.
very clean.
Yeah.
And now I did show it to my trainer. He didn't like it because he's like, that is way too many calories and fat. But so if you're going, this is why it gets so much confusing. But like, so really from a scientific medical perspective, as long as you're in that fast state, better that you have some fat in the morning than any kind of sugar.
Yes, exactly. And like other options would be like eggs, right? Turkey sausage, like making sure you're getting enough protein in the morning. A protein shake, like those are easy things to make.
And protein shakes also, we have to be careful, right? Because you can make them yummy, but if all of a sudden you throw in bananas and honey or a big scoop of peanut butter, then it's just like a salad. It can become really caloric.
Exactly. So you do have to kind of just like also put even like log what you're putting in in a protein shake, put it in your MyFitnessPal app and look at what the calorie count is on it. Because I have had patients where their smoothie sounds amazing and like healthy,
but it's like 900
then when we
calories.
add it up, and it's like 700 calories in the morning.
Okay. So one of the things Joe Carabassi, who does a lot with fat loss, was saying he also advocates the intermittent fasting on the show, but what he told me to do, that if I felt really shaky, and I've been that way since I was a kid, like I always was the kid who needed like a snack or something. So he said, just have the protein shake and water, like just have the 2 scoops of protein and the water, because that'll keep you in like a fasted state, according to him. But
yeah, you could do that. I mean, if you go a little too high on protein, then you're kind of like out of the fasting zone, I would say, like technically, which is why this is actually low protein, like it's 10% protein basically.
Oh, really?
It's kind of like an interesting mix. And the same thing with keto, like if you eat too much protein, it'll bump you out of keto. But another thing I would say is like fiber also changes the game for many people, that they're not eating enough fiber, and that contributes to issues with your microbiome. That's a whole other like topic.
So let's make the perfect skinny smoothie in the morning that's going to fuel you, the busy mom out there. So what are you putting in there? Because fiber, I'm thinking oats, but I'm thinking I shouldn't have oats. But
right, yeah. So I would put ground flax meal.
Okay.
That's so good for your intestines and for your microbiome. And I've had like also like another thing that happens as we get older is we're more prone to constipation, and flax is one of those fiber sources you can add in that's not super high fiber, but it's just the blend of other ingredients in there. Lignans has like cured constipation in many of my patients.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a side tip. But
So you start with a protein powder.
So protein,
what about
flax meal.
There's whey, there's pea, there's all this. Does that matter?
Yeah, it does. So you would want to make sure if you're using a plant-based shake that it has like the complete amino acid profile, and you'll see that sort of detailed on there. Make sure it has like added branched chain amino acids. Some people are dairy sensitive, so they might not be doing a great job by having whey. They could be feeling bloated and having GI effects. You probably know that if you
have a whey shake and you're feeling like bloated.
Yeah.
It may not be a good thing.
You might need to switch. And then I would add like some sort of like leafy greens or something in there. And in terms of like, you can just do water, but you could do more like flax milk instead of some of these other alternative milks. That's another good way to kind of amp up the nutrition. Like you could do berries. I would do berries, maybe like a half a cup of frozen berries.
Okay, and frozen again, still okay, healthy.
Yeah, totally, like
organic
excellent
if you
for you.
can.
But yeah, no banana in there.
No banana.
No banana.
So people say, are bananas and carrots really bad? Are they like, I mean, they're vegetables and fruits, but like you would have people avoid them?
Yeah, bananas are really high glycemic impact, so I really have people avoid it. I mean, if there was a slice or two in there, fine, but don't put like a full banana or even a half a banana in your shake, unless you're making it for like a child. They could have that. But I would stick more so like with the berries and use that. And then, if you are going to add a nut butter, add like a teaspoon.
Okay, so
of nut
sometimes
butter.
I see my husband putting a giant scoop, and so that maybe okay for him, I don't know, but
Yeah.
like when nut butter is caloric, so
Yes.
we want a teaspoon, not a 2
Right,
tablespoons.
because like 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, for example, is like 180 calories.
Yeah.
Like probably that much.
I've eaten that for breakfast before as like a quick breakfast. Like just take 2 big
just
scoops,
take-
you can run out the door.
Because it's like that actually could fuel you for a little while.
Yeah. Okay, so I can't believe that we only have 5 more minutes to talk about this, but let's just do some review that ideally you want to start eating before 9 a.m., stop eating 10 hours later. You can drink things in the evening, herbal teas, seltzer, all of that. Let's talk about supplements. We did a show on this before, berberine, and that is sort of like nature's Ozempic.
Yes.
But it can help with not having a glucose spike and not feeling so craving.
Exactly. So it helps with insulin sensitivity. It helps work on some of the same pathway that Ozempic works on, without any of those GI risks and side effects. Like a very, very safe supplement to use, and actually has been clinically studied and compared like milligram per milligram with metformin, which is another diabetes medication, to lower glucose levels. And it works like if you take 500 milligrams of this versus 500 of metformin, it has the same effect on blood sugar.
Okay, and berberine, you can get this without a prescription. That's by Metagenics. I know you sell it at your practice.
Yep.
But if you want to Google Metagenics berberine, that's the brand you use, you can get these without a prescription.
Yep, and this one I really love because it has green tea extract built into it. So it's berberine GT, and we know that green tea has a great effect on insulin and glucose signaling. And then of course, like
Having
you
green tea
supplement
can
some
matter.
green tea also.
Okay,
Yeah.
Akkermansia, we've talked about that before, but I want to make sure that we have it here. This is also by Metagenics, and this is a newer researched probiotic. But the Akkermansia company, it's a special kind of probiotic that helps with glucose control.
Yeah, exactly. So this is actually a European company, and Metagenics is the distributor for this new product. It just came out in the fall. We've been using it a lot in our practice, but it has 2 years of being on the market in Europe and good clinical results with it. So it's actually a pasteurized probiotic. So it doesn't have any live bacteria in there, unlike a lot of others. And you would think like, well, how does that work? It has what's called a postbiotic effect. So we've heard of like probiotics, prebiotics, and now we've got postbiotics. So it's just like the cellular components of the bacteria is basically like signaling the rest of the microbiome to kind of shift into a microbiome profile that is one not associated with obesity anymore, because your gut bacteria does that.
I can't believe we only have a minute left, but we have to talk about exercise because diet is so important. You can't out-train your fork. But the other thing you told me is take lots and lots and lots of steps.
Yeah, like a lot of activity. You really want to be not being sedentary, getting a lot of steps in daily. And then when you can, like it might not be every day, but really long extended walks. Like when you go over an hour, that's the ticket.
And as we get older, at least 2 times a week you want to be strength training because muscle
sure.
helps us burn fat, helps us really keep a good metabolism.
Absolutely, it's going to help with that insulin sensitivity.
So women have often thought, I'm just going to not eat much and do lots of cardio. That's wrong for our metabolism.
Yeah, that's bad news.
That's bad news. Okay, exercise, walking, lots of step, over an hour if you can, and then a couple times a week lift some heavy weights.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I'm gonna get to it. I'm gonna go for a walk right after this. But these are scientifically backed ways to hack your metabolism. Please share this with someone you love. If it's useful to you, you can follow me at Kara Sundlund and at Dr. Stagg for more information. Have a great day and be well.